Good evening and welcome to Viva la Fiesta, Art Night 2021 with the Pasadena Public Library. This is going to be a short book talk sharing some titles that will help you and your family members of all ages celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. So we're starting with books for children. Our first title is Marta, Big and Small by Jen Arena and illustrated by Angela Dominguez. Marta is una niña, an ordinary girl with some extraordinary animal friends. As Marta explores the jungle, she knows she's bigger than a bug, smaller than an elephant, and faster than a turtle. But then she meets the snake, who thinks Marta is sabrosa, tasty, very tasty. But Marta is ingeniosa, a very clever girl, and she outsmarts the snake with hilarious results. With simple Spanish and a glossary at the end, this fun read-aloud picture book, Marta, Big and Small, teaches little ones to identify opposites and animals and learn new words. Our second title for children is a board book called Animal Talk, Mexican Folk Art Animal Sounds in English and Spanish by Cynthia Whale, with wood sculptures from Oaxaca by Rubí Fuentes and Efraín Boa. Sonidas de animales en español e inglés. Did you know that animals that live in one country don't always talk the same language as animals from somewhere else? Take a rooster, for instance. In English-speaking countries, he says cock-a-doodle-doo when he has a notion to announce himself or to greet the dawn. But in Spanish-speaking countries, he says kikiriki. Bilingual text invites parent and child into an interactive and playful reading experience for acting out animal sounds in English and Spanish. Craftsmen Rubí Fuentes and Efraín Broa from the Mexican state of Oaxaca fill the pages of Animal Talk with vibrant, wildly imaginative figures of familiar animals. Island Born by Juno Diaz, illustrated by Leo Espinosa. Every kid in Lola's school was from somewhere else. Hers was a school of faraway places. So when Lola's teacher asks the students to draw a picture of where their families immigrated from, all the kids are excited, except Lola. She can't remember the island. She left when she was just a baby. But with the help of her family and friends and their memories, joyous, fantastical, heartbreaking, and frightening, Lola's imagination takes her on an extraordinary journey back to the island. As she draws closer to the heart of her family's story, Lola comes to understand the truth of her abuela's words. Just because you don't remember a place doesn't mean it's not in you. Gloriously illustrated and lyrically written, Island Born is a celebration of creativity, diversity, and our imagination's boundless ability to connect us to our families, to our past, and to ourselves. Yuyi Morales wrote Viva Frida with spare text and vibrant illustrations. This book examines Frida Kahlo's creative process. Frida Kahlo, one of the world's most famous and unusual artists, is revered around the world. Her life was filled with laughter, love, and tragedy, all of which influenced what she painted on her canvases. That's Frida, Viva Frida by Yuyi Morales. My Papi Has a Motorcycle by Isabel Quintero and illustrated by Zeke Peña. When Daisy Ramona zooms around her neighborhood with her papi on his motorcycle, she sees the people and places she's always known. She also sees a community that is rapidly changing around her. But as the sun sets purple, blue, gold behind Daisy Ramona and her papi, she knows that the love she feels will always be there. With vivid illustrations and text bursting with heart, My Papi Has a Motorcycle is a young girl's love letter to her hardworking dad and to memories of home that we hold close in the midst of change. And now, on to books for teens and young adults. Julia Alvarez, a very prolific writer, has written In the Time of the Butterflies. It is November 25th, 1960, and three beautiful sisters have been found dead near their wrecked Jeep at the bottom of a 150-foot cliff on the north coast of the Dominican Republic. The official state newspaper reports their death as accidental. It does not mention that a fourth sister lives, nor does it explain that the sisters were among the leading opponents of General Rafael Leonidas Trujillo's dictatorship. It doesn't have to. Everybody knows of Las Mariposas, the butterflies. In this extraordinary novel, the voices of all four sisters, Minerva, Patria, Maria Teresa, and the survivor, Dede, speak across the decades to tell their own stories, from hair ribbons and secret crushes to gun running and prison torture, and to describe the everyday horrors of life under Trujillo's rule. Through the art and magic of Julia Alvarez's imagination, the martyred butterflies live again in this novel of courage, love, and the human cost of political oppression. Hurricane Dancers, the First Caribbean Pirate Shipwreck by Margarita Engel. Quebrado has been traded from pirate ship to ship in the Caribbean Sea for as long as he can remember. The sailors he toils under call him El Quebrado, half islander, half outsider, a broken one. Now the pirate captain Bernardino de Talavera uses Quebrado as a translator to help navigate the worlds and words between his mother's Taino Indian language and his father's Spanish. But when a hurricane sinks the ship and most of its crew, it is Quebrado who escapes to safety. He learns how to live on land again among people who treat him well, and it is he who must decide the fate of his former captors. The Circuit, Stories from the Life of a Migrant Child by Francisco Jimenez. La Frontera. I heard it for the first time back in the late 1940s when Papa and Mama told me and Roberto, my older brother, that someday we would take a long trip north, cross La Frontera, enter California, and leave our poverty behind. So begins this honest and powerful account of a family's journey to the fields of California, to a life of constant moving from strawberry fields to cotton fields, from tent cities to one-room shacks, from picking grapes to topping carrots and thinning lettuce, seen through the eyes of a boy who longs for an education and the right to call one place home. This is a story of survival, faith, and hope. It is a journey that will open readers' hearts and minds. Tortilla Sun by Jennifer Cervantes. Tortilla Sun is about 12-year-old Izzy, who discovers a beat-up baseball marked with the words, "Because Magic," while unpacking in yet another new apartment. She is determined to figure out what it means. What secrets does this old ball have to tell? Her mom certainly isn't sharing any, especially when it comes to Izzy's father, who died before Izzy was born. But when she spends the summer in her Nana's remote New Mexico village, Izzy discovers long-buried secrets that come alive in an enchanted landscape of watermelon mountains, whispering winds, and tortilla suns. Infused with the flavor of the Southwest and sprinkled with just a pinch of magic, this heartfelt middle-grade debut is as rich and satisfying as Nana's homemade enchiladas. And 90 Miles to Havana by Enrique Flores Galvis. When unrest hits the streets of Havana, Cuba, Julian's parents must make the heartbreaking decision to send him and his two brothers away to Miami via the Pedro Pan operation. But when the boys get to Miami, they're thrust into a world where bullies seem to run rampant, and it's not always clear how to best protect themselves. And finally, some titles for adults. The Undocumented Americans by Carla Cornejo Villavicencio. Traveling across the country, journalist Carla Cornejo Villavicencio risked arrest at every turn to report the extraordinary stories of her fellow undocumented Americans. Her subjects have every reason to be wary around reporters, but Cornejo Villavicencio has unmatched access to their stories. Her work culminates in a stunning, essential read for our times. Born in Ecuador and brought to the United States when she was 5 years old, she has lived the American dream. Raised on her father's delivery man income, she later became one of the first undocumented students admitted to Harvard. She is now a doctoral candidate at Yale University and has written for the New York Times. She weaves her own story among those of the 11 million undocumented who have been thrust into the national conversation today as never before. Looking well beyond the flashpoints of the border or the activism of the dreamers, Cornejo Villavicencio explores the lives of the undocumented as rarely seen in our daily headlines. In New York, we meet the undocumented workers who were recruited in the federally funded Ground Zero cleanup after 9/11. In Miami, we enter the hidden botanicas, which offer witchcraft and homeopathy to those whose status blocks them from any other healthcare options. In Flint, Michigan, we witness how many live in fear as the government issues raids at grocery stores and demands identification before offering life-saving clean water. In her book, Undocumented Americans, Cornejo Villavicencio powerfully reveals the hidden corners of our nation of immigrants. She brings to light remarkable stories of hope and resilience, and through them, we come to understand what it truly means to be American. Gordo, Stories by Jaime Cortez. His first ever collection of stories, Jaime Cortez's Gordo, is set in a migrant workers camp near Watsonville, California in the 1970s. A young boy named Gordo fights back tears underneath a wrestler's mask as he is forced to fight other boys and grow into his father's expectations of manhood. As he comes of age, Gordo learns about sex, poverty, and discovers the wrenching divides between documented and undocumented immigrants. Fat Cookie, high schooler and resident artist, uses tiny library pencils to draw murals of graffiti flowers along the camp's blank walls. The words Chicano power boldly lettered across before she runs away from home one day with her mother's boyfriend. Los Tigres, the perfect pair of twins who show up to Guyrich Farms every season without fail, are champion drinkers until one of them is rushed to the emergency room after a brawl, bloody and slumped in a tattered easy chair on the back of a pickup truck. These scenes from Steinbeck country seem so intimately from within, are full of humor, family drama, and a sweet frankness about serious matters. Who belongs to America, and how are they treated? Written with balance and poise, Cortez braids together elegantly tragicomic and inviting stories about life on a California camp, in essence, redefining what all-American means. Of Women and Salt by Gabriela Garcia. A sweeping, masterful debut about a daughter's fateful choice, a mother motivated by her own past, and a family legacy that begins in Cuba before either of them were born. In present-day Miami, Jeanette is battling addiction. Daughter of Carmen, a Cuban immigrant, she is determined to learn more about her family history from her reticent mother and makes the snap decision to take in the daughter of a neighbor detained by ICE. Carmen, still wrestling with the trauma of displacement, must process her difficult relationship with her own mother while trying to raise a wayward Jeanette. Steadfast in her quest for understanding, Jeanette travels to Cuba to see her grandmother and reckon with secrets from the past destined to erupt. From 19th century cigar factories to present-day detention centers, from Cuba to Mexico, Of Women and Salt is a kaleidoscopic portrait of betrayals, personal and political, self-inflicted and those done by others, that have shaped the lives of these extraordinary women. A haunting meditation. What's Mine and Yours by Naima Koster. When a county initiative in the Piedmont of North Carolina forces the students at a mostly Black public school on the east side to move across town to a nearly all-white high school on the west, the community rises in outrage. For two students, quiet and aloof G and headstrong Noel, these divisions will extend far beyond their schooling. As their paths collide and overlap over the course of 30 years, their two seemingly disconnected families begin to form deeply knotted, messy ties that shape the trajectory of their lives. On one side of the school integration debate is Jade, G's steely, single Black mother, grieving for her murdered partner and determined for her son to have the best chance at a better life. On the other is Noel's enterprising mother, Lacey May, who refuses to see her half-Latina daughters as anything but white. The choices these mothers make will resound for years to come. And 20 years later, when Lacey's daughters return home to visit her in the hospital, they're forced to confront the ways their parents' decisions continue to affect the life they live and the people they love. What's mine and yours is a sweeping, rich tapestry of familial bond and identity, and a sharp, poignant look at the ways race affects even the closest of relationships. This is not just one love story, but many. It's the all-consuming, volatile passion of young lovers and the quiet comfort of steady companionship. It's the often tenuous but unbreakable bond between siblings. And it's the unconditional love that runs between parent and child and encompasses adoration, contempt, and forgiveness. With gorgeous prose, Naima Koster explores the unique organism that is every family, what breaks them apart, and how they come back together. Las Beauty Queens by Ivan Mona Lisa Ojeda. Drawing from her own experience as a trans performer, sex worker, and undocumented immigrant, Ivan Mona Lisa Ojeda chronicles the lives of Latinx queer and trans immigrants in New York City. Whether she is struggling with addiction, clashing with law enforcement, or is being subjected to personal violence, each character chooses her own path of defiance, often responding to her fate with irreverent, dark humor. What emerges is the portrait of a group of friends who express unquestioning solidarity and love for each other, and of an unfamiliar, glittering, and violent New York City that will draw readers in and swallow them whole. On every page, Ivan Mona Lisa's unique narrative talent is on display as she artfully transforms the language of the streets, making it her own, rich with rhythm and debauchery. This bold new collection positions Ojeda as a fresh and necessary voice within the canon of world literature. You can find all of these books and many more at the Pasadena Public Library. You can check our library blog, which is called On the Shelf for Adult Titles, and you can check our guides for teen and children's book suggestions for many more titles by Latinx authors and telling the stories of a rich tapestry of people of the Latinx heritage. So thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of Art Night.